طيب, Brother Faisal, we're going to take a question from online and come back to the listeners, inshallah.
The question says, what's the state of Sheikh Musa Jibril is he to take knowledge from? So I think the question is talking about Ahmad Musa Jibril, a very well-known American modern Khariji scholar. And if this is the person which I believe the question is asking about, then this person, his situation, his hal is well known. Unfortunately, he's become very popular amongst the youth today as one of the most popular scholars and defenders of terrorist organizations like Daesh, Al-Qaeda, and others. And his track record and his history has been documented even by the non-Muslims. And there's a lot to be said, but inshallah, I will try to quickly just mention some of the key points so a person is aware, not to only stay away from him, but to warn any other Muslim who you know of, who listens and tries to take knowledge from such an individual who is clearly treading and following the methodology of the Khawarij. The first is that he takes from his teachers are the well-known Khawarij of our time, the likes of Safar al-Hawari and Hamoud bin Uqla al-Shu'aybi, who is one of those who have been arrested by Saudi Arabia and has influenced many students who are people of terrorism and extremism, like Ali al-Khudayr, Nasser Fahad, and others. And Ahmad Musa Jibril openly admits this on his channels and his social media that he's only a student of them, that he met Safar al-Hawari, he studied with Salman al-Awla before, that these people, especially Nasser Fahad, which is most vocal in supporting, and all these people have been jailed by the Saudi government for extremism and radical views. Specifically, Nasser Fahad, who he often refers to on Twitter and the likes, who's been arrested for 2003 Riyadh bombings, or associated to the 2003 Riyadh bombings of residential complexes and the likes. Ahmad Musa Jibril himself is also a person who's been arrested, and he has also criminal charges. In 2004, he was arrested in America, Detroit, for 42 criminal charges involving criminal activities like fraud, conspiracy, and the likes. And he served, him and his father, something around 6.5 years in jail. So clearly, a person like this who not only talks about extremism, acts upon it too, and by distorting the image of Islam and doing criminal activities, clearly, the individual not fit to learn and study. And a person, if to read his biography, you'll be shocked and amazed. A person like this can talk about other Muslims and the Muslim rulers as being misguided or kuffar, and he himself is following the behaviors of the people who don't even practicing Islam. But to get to the bottom of his views are well known. If a person were to just look even very briefly at his views, he supports 9/11 attacks. You can find the audios and messages of that, supporting ISIS well before their emergence, calling the Saudi Arabian government and Muslim country rulers as tawaghit, as false deities, calling the Muslim scholars agents, murjia, rejects, Yehud al-Qibla, and other such outrageous speech. And if you look at the principles he follows, it's the same as the ulama have said before. The Khawarij in the past and today, they operate in the same methodology in which they use these kinds of sensational tactics of making takfir and pointing out mistakes without tafsir, without detail. For example, Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah mentions that the ignorant people making takfir, the ulama al-Muslimin, min a'dha al-munkarat, is from the greatest of munkarat. And you find that he says that the Khawarij, it's an asl, he said, هذا من الخوارج والروافض. The Khawarij and the Rafid, the Shia, are the people الذين يكفرون أئمة المسلمين. They make disbelief of and they declare, excommunicate the leaders of the Muslims and their scholars. To get to some examples of his extremism, for someone can be certain, when you look at the methodology that he approaches and the things that he says, he's clearly following the way of these teachers who are Khawarij, and also the principle of the Khawarij of the past. For example, when it comes to takfir, he makes takfir openly without any consideration for shurut and muwani', for any considerations for conditions and stipulations or preventatives. And we know the ulama mentioned or that the Ahl Sunnah Jama'ah do not make takfir of the people without examining the person has any shurut, conditions that they fulfill first, and then the preventatives. An example would be him making takfir of those who work as police officers or in armies without making any tafsir. If somebody's ignorant, if someone is found out of wanting wealth and didn't know any better. And if you compare that to the fatwa of our mashayikh, the Shaykh Al-Albani, Shaykh Muqbil, and others, when they discuss in detail the ruling of someone joining an army of a non-Muslim country, whether they're Muslim or not, and the detail they give, and they always mention it's a sin, but they never make takfir of the people, unlike this person. Another example we also find is that he and the likes of his followers, they make takfir bil-lawazim al-qawl. And we know Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, when it comes to lazim, the necessity or necessity conclusion of people's speech and their madhab does not mean that that's what they believe. So أهل البدع the ulama mentioned the Khawarij تكفيرهم مخالفين لهم بلازم قول, that they make takfir of the opponents of theirs by the necessary conclusion of their speech without giving the person a chance to confirm or to reject that they believe the actual. And if someone were to study this, you find that he, for example, anyone like his group, if someone works in a Muslim country as a security guard, or someone finds a bank, or any of these things, they make takfir every single person, because if they were to be there and be part of it, then this means that they're agreeing to it. If they rule by other than Allah reveals by even one action out of ignorance, they don't care if it's accident. And so if you look carefully, you find he makes takfir on these grounds and many others. So this is just a summary of some of the reasons why this person follows the way of the Khawarij, and some of them have gathered a lot of his mistakes together. And I would also recommend the question and those who are listening to be very mindful of such people who not only have a public platform who's growing on YouTube, despite the fact that YouTube warns you from listening to such people and to be careful of his views. You find many of the youth amazed by him, giving him titles, outrageous titles like Great Imam, the true Sheikh, the one who's memorized this and that, and you find that he says things that no scholar, no person of knowledge would say. One last thing also about his techniques, that he also would post heavily on TikTok and other social media avenues, knowing that these will give him attention, and he also does not clarify of recent, because after his jail time, he does not use explicit wording on his titles. So he will give classes and he will just insert these things, but his students now are cutting them up and putting them onto social media so you can see. So the conclusion, and maybe another time we can go more detail, this person is clearly a person to be wary of, to stay away from, and to be extremely cautious of, and anyone who listens to him, for he's from the way the people of the Khawarij, he's a Khariji, and he's following that way, and more importantly, he has already a long, extensive criminal history, and those who follow him, unfortunately, are treading the same path. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all. Ameen.
And also to add, he is someone that people who know him, who have experienced certain things of statements, they find that he's someone that condones or promotes certain acts of like robbery from the kuffar, taking credit card loans without returning the money, even stealing, like has been said, stealing things from the Jewish company, and just certain things that he would even promote suicide bombings. He has a weird stance about Osama bin Laden, even statements about Sayyid Qutb, even what he wrote about Salman Auda and what he said regarding him. And he is someone that when you see him how he is with about people of his like, he's so easygoing and excusing them. But the people that he calls them agents of Saudi Arabia, and he calls the people that oppose him with the harshest of statements, and some of them he even calls them munafiq, hypocrites, some of them kafir. So he is an individual, his creed, his methodology, his character, from a lot of angles. And it's not someone that you would want to take knowledge from. What has been said about him is so much past and present. The least is that we should be cautious and stay away from such an individual. Unfortunately, now online, anyone that has a long beard and is speaking with some Arabic language is being promoted as someone that is a great knowledgeable figure. It's the example of the West. And a one-eyed man is considered to be a great icon or a king in a blind world. And a lot of people that are not so fortunate to have studied, they may be deceived by such individuals. So there's a lot that have been said about him and his statements. He is someone that even has a weird stance about what happened regarding the affair of September 11. And if you see statements regarding that issue, and when you tell him how much harm has come to the Muslims by way of that, you find a different stance from him. So be cautious from him and stay away from him, inshallah. I hope that clarifies. There's more to be said. It requires a lengthy audio giving reference for every statement with his points. So no one could ever be deceived by him, inshallah.